Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly is the founding executive editor of Wire magazine and a former editor of the Whole Earth Review. He has also been a writer, photographer, conservationist, and a student of Asian culture. Today, we will speak about his latest project, Vanishing Asia, which is a set of three books with 1,000 pages and 9,000 images where he summarizes his travel to Asia and where he captures Asia's disappearing traditions and culture. Kevin Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
It is my pleasure to be here again. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Kevin, I spoke to you about 2 years ago. I think it was 2019, not that far back. And I was just a beginner podcast, and I was just so delighted that you gave me the opportunity to come over to my show because you are a recognized author and you have been in so many other podcasts before. And that was podcast number 60. And now we are catching up with you because you have a new project. And I'm just so eager to hear about it. But since then, I have a whole bunch of new listeners. So I wonder if we could just start with a little bit of your background for the new listeners who didn't listen to episode number 60 before.
Yeah. Let's see. Right now, I am senior maverick at Wired magazine, a magazine that I helped co-found 25 years ago. I write about the culture and meaning of technology. I'm interested in how it plays out in our lives. I'm not as interested in the tech itself. And I wrote a book. My last idea book was called The Inevitable, which was about the next 20 or so years in technology. But while I have been traveling the world, giving talks about technology and trying to understand what's happening globally, I have also had a passion project on the side, which has been to document the cultures and traditions in Asia that are disappearing. And that's probably why we are talking right now, because I have a Kickstarter campaign to launch this book, which has been a passion project for 49 years. Something I've been working on for 49 years. And there's two sides to Asia. There is the past, which is disappearing, but there's the future, where it is the cities of Asia are more futuristic than any city in America. And I've been kind of paying attention to both sides. I normally talk about the future, but right now I want to talk about the past.
And what was it about Asia? You started this project over 40 years ago. You were a young man. I saw some videos of you.
Yeah.
You had a black beard at that time.
Yes.
But even from your younger years, you were interested in Asia. I mean, you come from a huge country, the United States, with its richness and all different cultures and subculture, but you decided to go to the other side of the planet. What was that was
Yeah.
interest?
Well, it's very hard to imagine right now, but when I was growing up in America, the United States, in the 50s, 1950s and 1960s, even though we were a suburb of New York City, it was still incredibly parochial and closed and not cosmopolitan. I had never seen Chinese people. I had never used chopsticks. I'd never eaten Chinese food. That seems kind of almost impossible now for anybody growing up in America. But at that time, things were very closed. There was no internet. There was only 3 channels on a TV, and you had to watch whenever they were watching. So it was information was very, very scarce. You only kind of you had National Geographic, and that was about it. And I was actually inspired by National Geographic to go and try to photograph a place because I was invited. I wanted to travel. I didn't know where to go, but I was invited by a friend, my high school friend, who was studying Chinese in Taiwan to be a missionary. So he said, "Why don't you come visit me?" And I thought, okay, I don't know anything about Asia. I know nothing. I didn't know anything. I got a job and I worked and I saved money for a year to buy a plane ticket. I didn't have only a couple $100 to be with me, to take with me. And I went to visit my friend in Taiwan, and it was like, my head exploded, my mind exploded. It was just so different. It was remarkably different. I had dropped out of college because it was just more of the same. It was like grade 13, sitting in a classroom. I was just driving. I just couldn't do it anymore. I needed to see the world. And then I went to Asia, and it was like a university. It was like my college. It was my PhD program. It was utterly educational. Every single minute I was learning something new and having my mind changed. And that continued for my entire time. Because once I started to travel, I realized there was another country next door. There was Japan, there was the Philippines. And I came back and worked and saved some more money. I went back, and I was coming back because I was learning so much. It was my university.
Right. Okay. So traveling to Asia changed your mind. Yet in the United States, most people don't have a passport.
Yeah.
And I guess through your book, we're going to speak about it a little bit more. That will foment the curiosity of other countries. But what would you say to the millions of Americans who don't have a passport? Yeah.
Yeah. What I would say is very harsh is the arithmetic is not in the favor of the U.S. U.S. is one of the biggest, largest populated countries in the world, maybe 350 million people. But just two countries alone, China, India alone, have 3 billion people. That's 10 times the amount. So there's just 10 times the energy in just two countries, China and India, that dwarf whatever happens in the US. And so increasingly what happens in the US doesn't count. It doesn't matter as much as what's happening in the rest of the world. And no matter what happens between China and the US politically, globalization will still continue. No matter what happens with the Trump people, globalization will continue. So we are becoming a global civilization. It's unstoppable. And if you want to have some influence on the world, you need to pay more attention to what's happening outside the US, because it increasingly doesn't matter as much.
Okay, another thing that you mentioned is that you dropped out of college, and we had spoken about this before. Uh, we are taught that in order for us to succeed in life, to have any hope of having a regular income, we should get in debt. If we don't have rich parents, get $100,000 career, and that's our only chance to make a living in a dignified way. But you seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, I think college is a fine choice for many people. I counsel our own children. I have 3 kids, and it was very clear. I said, look, you don't have to go to college, but you have to do something very deliberate to further your education, to prepare yourself. So you can take off a year and travel. You could buy a car. We'll give you money for all this. You could buy a car and go make a trip. You could sign up at a workshop. You could become an artist and have a program. Whatever it is, we'll support you. You don't have to go to college. But my 3 kids did go. They chose because it's easier, because they didn't have a plan. Because that's basically, it was like, what you can't do is just sit around and play computer games for 4 years. So, and so it was sort of like an easier option. And for many people, it is an easier option. But if you don't have the money, you can assemble, you can arrange your life, even if you were working, to give yourself a degree. I decided I wanted to learn business, and I thought, well, should I go back to school and get an MBA? I didn't have any money. I'd go into debt, get an MBA. And I kind of thought about it and looked at it in different programs. And I said, you know what? I bet if I take $200 and try to start a business and actually try to sell something, that I probably will learn more about business that way. And that's exactly what it did. I took $200. I bought an ad to advertise some ads in Rolling Stone magazine to do my mail order calendar. I mean, I bootstrapped $200, and I learned so much about business. I went on to start my own magazine, which is what came very, very helpful when starting Wired magazine. Again, with no money, but I was using it as my MBA and my degree in publishing. And so, because I said, even if the business failed, my $200, I would still learn more about business by actually doing it. And so that's what I would say to your listeners, is that you don't need college. If you go about learning deliberately and you really try to excel, and you have what we call deliberate practice, which means that you learn something to the point of failure. You try things that are not easy. It's not like playing the piano where you rehearse what you know. It's like you play the piano to the point where you are making mistakes and having to correct. You are pushing yourself to the limit of breaking. That's deliberate practice. That's what you want to do with learning. And if you are able to do that on your own, you will have more power than someone who went to college. The networking thing can also be accomplished as well. I like to, very proud of my children, but my son, who did go to college, went to work, was working a job, not feeling satisfied, and he decided he wanted to get an MFA, Master of Fine Arts. And so we talked about it, and what he kind of finally decided to do, and I'm very proud of him, is to give himself his own MFA degree. So for 1 year, he decided 1 year he was going to be in art, and he was going to make art every day. He was going to share it with people. He was going to have mentors, people he respected, that he was going to show the work to. He was going to try and make a graduate degree program for himself. And it wasn't so much a matter of saving money. It was a matter of getting even more out of it than he could with a university. Of course, it timed it well because there's COVID and most students are working from home anyway. So my only point about all of this is that I think it's perfect for many people who may not be as self-motivated, may require the kind of structure of a classroom and teachers and other students, and they respond to that, and that's fantastic. And I hope they have that chance. But that's not the only path. And I'm saying there are many alternatives paths, and for some people that's a better path.
When you went to Asia for the first time, I think you had the foresight of taking a camera with you. Were you already into photography at that time, and were you self-taught? And did you already had the idea of starting documenting these places that you didn't have any idea that you were going to see?
So in the 60s, when you did photography, you were doing chemistry. You had to be a chemist, because the only way you could kind of really make film and have developed and make prints was to do it yourself. And we did black and white because color was almost impossible. You need to be very rich to do color. It was a very complicated process. So most of the photography was black and white, and I was self-taught. There were a few books at the library that I read to try to understand it. I saw a kid in my high school show me him doing the developing, and he was very, very sloppy. And I thought, man, if that guy could do it, I can do it. And so I was a science nerd, but very interested in art. And I was thinking about maybe I should go to art school or to MIT. I couldn't decide. And so photography for me was this beautiful convergence, this beautiful marriage of art and science and technology, because you had to be very, very technical in order to use photography at that time. The lenses often didn't have meters. I mean, it was, it's, when you're doing it all in that kind of manual way, it was very, very technical. And that really made me happy. So in the beginning, I was photographing with again, I didn't have any money, so I had very cheap cameras. That my first camera, I think, was only $5. It was a used camera that I found somewhere. And I was doing all the stuff myself. And when I went to Asia, I was inspired by National Geographic, and I decided I would try and take slides, Kodak film, which I could not process myself, and it was very expensive. So to take a picture, one picture then was in today's dollars, $5 a shot. That's how expensive it was to take a picture. One slide, to photograph it and to buy the film and then to process it, was $5 exposure. And so you have to be very, very careful about what you're going to take pictures of, and you had to have some reason for it. When I went to Asia the first time, to like Taiwan and then to Japan, I didn't know what I was photographing. I was kind of photographing lots of different things. I didn't have anything in mind. I just wanted to do photography. I wanted to do pictures, kind of maybe what people would do on Instagram today. And it was only as I went along that I started to realize that there were these traditions that almost within my own experience, I could see drop away, where I would be somewhere, there'd be a rice paddy, I'd come back months later and it would already be a factory there. It was like, whoa. So it was changing so fast that I could see with my own eyes this stuff disappearing. And that's when I sort of began to feel as if I was going to seek out these little corners where I could document this. And I really liked, there was a certain kind of image that I was after. It wasn't a certain quality of this image. And I began to seek those out, almost like people would collect things. So I don't collect anything except images. So this was a kind of a collecting for me, where I kind of get addicted to collecting these kinds of things. And that took some time, but once I kind of had it in mind, I just couldn't stop it.
And what gave you the self-assurance to tell yourself, I'm going to document Asia and all the transformation that Asia is? After all, you are just a white dude with a camera.
Yeah, I was just
and you're not as still well known as you are today. You haven't accomplished much. You are broke. So to have this goal of, I'm going to start documenting these changes in Asia, it seems kind of absurd.
Yes, it's an art project.
Okay.
It's cool and useless. It became art. And the primary, and the weird thing, not the weird thing, is that I wasn't showing. I mean, it wasn't like I had there was nowhere to show it. So it wasn't like there was no Instagram, there was no place of posting it. There were just slides that I had, and I was hoping something, and I began to think about doing a book someday on it. And so no, it was utterly something that I was forced to do. But the thing about it was, traveling to Asia itself became something. I got so many other things from it besides the images. And part of that is what I was trying to capture in the images, which is this otherness, this difference. It was teaching me how to think differently. And it was teaching me the value of what was going on in the globe. And it gave me, later on, going to Japan and China, places like that, a sense of technology and how technology plays in people's lives. And then it made me an optimist. every time I went to Asia, I became more optimistic about the world. So I got many other things from those travels besides just the pictures. And then in later years, my business was inherently going to Asia. So I was going there anyway, and then I would always do additional travel to these remote places. So it was kind of like double duty.
I see. When I heard about your project, I thought of the photographer Edward Curtis, who made it his life goal to photograph dying Native American cultures in the United States. And I think he died in the 1950s or something, but he had many volumes of his photograph, and that was also at a period where you the camera was just recently invented.
Yeah. So Curtis, yes, Curtis documented North American indigenous Native Americans, and oftentimes with large format cameras, and so they're his images and portraits mostly are very, very beautiful, and so maybe I was doing the same, and I know that some of the things I have photographed are no longer seen, and uh, I'm hoping that even in the future, maybe people from those same countries would appreciate the images of their past. I want to emphasize, though, that I'm not trying to conserve them. I'm not trying to um, prevent them from disappearing, because I understand um, the forces that are at work. I understand why people leave villages and go into cities, because if I was living in these beautiful villages, I too would leave, because I want the choices and opportunities that a big city offers. That's why I live in a big city. I'm not living in the countryside. And so I understand the dynamics, and I'm not trying to say we need to preserve these or stop the development or stop the world. I'm just saying, while we're going forward, let's remember these, because these traditions are a source of ideas for the future. They, in some ways, can help us think differently about the the normal problems we have of life, of where we're going to eat, or what we're going to eat, where we're going to live, how we're going to dress. Some of those traditions still have ideas that we can reuse and can bring to the forward again. And so for me, the reason to document it, again, is not out of nostalgia, saying, oh, those are the beautiful days that are no longer. It's saying, here are some fantastic things that will help us moving forward. Here's inspiration, here's ideas, here's an alternative way of thinking, here's some tool that will help us to think different.
Since the discovery of America and Australia and the expansion of the West, there are civilizations that are dying almost by the day. Do you think that, I don't know, in 500 years, we will be just relegated to a few cultures, less, for speculation's sake, let's say North America, Asia, and maybe European culture, and everything else will be a memory?
Yes. So I think if we talk hundreds of years, I think that we are having a convergence of culture in cities, and that many um, basic needs are converging to become very, very similar. But there's a famous triangle pyramid called Maslow's hierarchy, which says that the bottom of the big fat bottom part of the pyramid is trying to satisfy our needs of shelter and food, the basic survival needs. And that once those are satisfied, then we can climb up to the next level of self-actualization, where we try to find purpose and meaning and belonging. And that if we continue to go up this pyramid of needs, at the very top is self-actualization, this kind of this moment of where we are becoming internally driven. We're not doing things because we need to pay for our shelter and food, but we're doing things because of what we are born to do. And I think over time, technology and civilization will provide more and more of those lower needs, and they may converge, be very similar. Everybody wants Wi-Fi. Okay, well, it's going to be kind of the G5, 5G, whatever. It's going to be the same. You're going to want to have, clean water, air conditioning, 5G. It's going to be the same all over the world. But at the higher levels, there may be a divergence of what it means to us, and we may have cultures that aren't geographically based. So we have a lot of these subcultures, the cosplay people, the anime, QAnon. We may, I think, going to see culture exhibited in a different way. The diversity will be shown and expressed in a different way, and they will have subcultures and cultures where there's your identity is that, but it may not be in your ethnic geographical heritage. It may be much more in who you identify as. Are you gay? Are you transgender? Are you are you Republican? It may come into another type of culture that may have many of the same kind of traditions and belonging and identity that we associate with geographical and ethnic heritage.
Okay, well, you are a busy person. I mean, the last time I spoke to you, you have written a book, and you are always reading, and you always have new project. When do you, and you've been collecting these photos for 40 years. When is
Right.
it, when was the turning point in your head that you said, I'm going to put this out to the public? Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me. Can you tell us what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So I, over the course of 49 years of photographing, accumulated 250,000 photographs of Asia, and I decided to put them into a book where there was more than one image on a page. There might be many images on a page, and that every single page would be a slightly different design depending on what was in the book on that page. And I decided to make the book as big as it needed to be, rather than say, well, I want to fit everything into 100 pages. I was saying, no. I'm just going to make as many pages as I think I need. And so the past year or so, I have been designing this book, and I decided that the audience for this book was one person, which was me. I wanted to make this book for me, and if I made one copy, I would be happy. But since I'm making one copy, I might as well make lots of copies because it doesn't cost any extra, and I'll share them with friends. So the audience for this book was me. I wanted to make this book for myself, to have this record of it. And in the end, it took 1,080 pages, and there were 9,000 images, and I wrote 9,000 captions for them, and I designed them on this page where you can see it doesn't work in digital. It has to be on this big piece of paper. But and I made some prototype of the books to kind of prove that it worked, including printing one up, and it was literally too big to read. It was just too heavy because it was 1,000 pages. And so anyway, I divided the book into 3 thinner volumes that same size pages that you can actually put on your lap and read. Each of those is still 340 or 60 pages. So it's a lot of pages, but there's 3 volumes. And so my idea of that I was going to kickstart it was I wanted to reach as many people and pre-sale them, because that would reduce the cost of it, and I wanted to lower the cost of the book as much as possible, because I was not trying to optimize how much money I made. I'm trying to optimize how many people can get the book. So by kickstarting, I can get a sense of pre-sale, how many I can print up, so I can maximize the number I print, and that reduced the cost to anybody who wanted to purchase it. And so that's what it is. The retail cost is like $300, but the early bird Kickstarters are kind of already sold out, but there's still the Kickstarter exclusive, which is $250, $50 off of the retail price. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share this work of art with as many people as I can. And it's called Vanishing Asia. It's on Kickstarter right now. It runs for another 2 or so weeks. And I'm trying to share my enthusiasm for this crazy continent, which runs, I took pictures from Turkey in the west to Japan in the east, from Siberia, which is very Asian, in the north, to Indonesia in the south, and all the countries, 35 countries in between. So it's a big area. There's more differences between Korea and Oman than there is between Korea and America. So it's very, very diverse. And I think anybody who gets this book will be blown away, because there is no other books like it in the world. I have 2 stories of books in my library here.
Wow, look at that.
And
Amazing.
I have all the photo books there are. I have all the travel books there are, and there's no book like this anywhere. So I know that I can guarantee and say that I promise you that it's unlike anything else you've seen.
So the design is quite unique. First of all, it's not the standard size of a regular book that I
Yeah,
would
it's
buy.
oversized.
So yeah, tell us about the oversize. And secondly, well, you are a photographer, but do you get any help in regards to the design of the book? Because I mean, I haven't seen the book. I just saw the videos, the book you presented it, and it looks quite sophisticated. In addition to that, you said previously that each page was designed differently. So that the curating of all those and how you're gonna place them together is another profession right there
Yeah.
again.
I did the design. I designed every page, and for me, it was part of the joy was designing the 1,000 pages, and just keeping track of the images, and then later on capturing all of them, remembering where they were. It was a huge thing, and that took a year of work to do. So yes, again, I went back to some of my roots, hoping to do art school at one point. So for me, a lot of what Wired was about. Wired was also not only text heavy, but very, very visual. And that was another reason why I loved working at Wired, because I think visually. And that's how I think. If I think in terms of pictures and visuals. And so for me, this was a joy in designing all the pages. I didn't have help. I did the covers. I've done everything. And of course, all the photographs as well. So there are, what's the word I want to say? Yeah, you can kind of see what the book looks like inside the video. I may put up some more pages in the Kickstarter. I did a sample little booklet of a PDF that gives you some senses of how the pages are laid out. But I appreciate this time to talk about the book. It is a passion of mine. I do believe that it would help people think differently, and thinking different is the engine of innovation in this new economy. And when we are connected to each other 24 hours a day around the globe, it's very hard to think different. It's very hard to have a different idea if you're connected all the time to social media and stuff. And so I think this challenge of having a new idea, a different idea, is one of the big challenges that we have as we become more connected. And I think this book can help people do that.
One more question in regards to the book and this work. I saw in your video that you also make available single pages. And can you, because that would be nice. I mean, I maybe I cannot display the
Yeah.
9,000 pages, but it would be nice to have one in
Yeah.
my living room, one in my,
Sure. Yeah. So I have to say that don't get the book unless you have a place to put it, because it is a big thing. It's in a slipcase, so it's kind of like it weighs 27 pounds, which is like 12.5 kilos or something. So it's major. But I did print up a book that I didn't bind, so I made a full size copy of the book that was not bound, and the pages are printed on each side, and I am sending them out as a reward at the lowest reward level, which I will sign, and I'll sign both sides of the page, and some of the pages will work framed. They're going to be handed out randomly. You never know what you'll get. But some of the pages may work perfectly well as something you could sign, almost like a poster or frame rather, and hang. But I'll sign both sides of them, and that's at the lowest reward level. And some people actually get the book and then the sheet,
yes, I would love
because
to
I'm
have.
not signing the books. That's too hard to do. But yeah, so that's the lower reward level of $25 shipped anywhere in the world.
And you said that the book is an oversized book. When you say oversized, what's the dimension?
Yeah, I don't remember in centimeters, but in inches, it's 11 inches wide and
Right, 17.
16.5 inches tall.
Okay. Like a poster.
Like
And
a poster, yeah.
and also you are only printing 5,000. So this means this could become a collector's item. I could
Yes,
just say,
I'm limiting it to 5,000.
is it gonna be number?
No,
Like
I was
no.
not.
I could say I have Kevin Kelly's number
Yeah.
257 right here, and maybe
Well,
upload it to
I
eBay.
actually, that's not. I hadn't thought about. Maybe the printer could number them. I'll ask about that. To tell you the truth, I had not thought about numbering them, not by hand, but by having a printer number them.
Right. I mean,
Um,
these days that everything is a collector's item, and
right. That would be, yeah. If each one had a number of 5,000. So the it's limited to 5,000, and there's not going to be a digital version because I tried it and it just doesn't work. I made 20 PDFs, which went out to the patron people who backed it at the highest level of patronage. They were limited to 20. There are 20 PDFs, which aren't a substitute for it. They're only used if you want to search, find something very, very quickly. So you can search in the PDF for it. So there's not going to be a digital version. The book will only exist as a paper book that, by the way, will never go obsolete. If in 100 years from now, it doesn't matter what
it will become more valuable because more
right, because you
civilizations
can
will
still
have
read it.
disappeared.
You can still pick it up and read it, and
Right.
you won't need any kind of special device or a card to read it or whatever. So yeah, it's only going to exist in the analog form.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Kevin, can you tell us one more time where? I mean, I'm gonna put all the links on the show notes, but kind of
Yeah.
where
Well,
people can follow you, find you, get the book,
I
etc.
have a website, which is my initials, kk.org. You can find all the stuff I'm doing there, including Recommendo, which is our newsletter we do every week, and Cool Tools and the other stuff, and my writings for Wired. But right now, the Vanishing Asia project is on Kickstarter, and it'll run for a couple more weeks. I have reached I reached my initial goal. So it's going to happen no matter what. But right now, what I'm trying to do is get as many pre-sales so I can, again, make sure that everybody has the lowest possible price for the book. So if you want to take advantage of that discount, head on over to Vanishing Asia and Kickstarter.
Well, I I'm so grateful for your time, and I recommend my listeners to go and get it. At least check out the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah,
At least
I have
they
some
will get to.
videos. I have some videos there that you may just enjoy the videos. Besides the lead videos, there's 2 other videos in the updates. You might just enjoy going on a little trip.
It's very much enjoyable. Kevin,
Okay,
thank you so much for your time.
thank you so much. I really appreciate your interest in my work. Your great questions. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.